Are you looking for the HD music players? In this video we will look at some of the 7 HD music players on the market. Before we get started with our video, we have included links in the description, so I'll make sure you check those out to see which one is in your budget range. Number 1. Surfan's F20. The Surfan's F20 has gained a bit of a cult following. It's a high-resolution MP3 player focusing on those who keep their music library on an SD card rather than using lossless streaming apps. It's an old-school audiophile DAP that offers much value for money and is one of the top players on our best cheap DAP list. All major lossless file formats are included, and there is also Bluetooth output should you wish to use it. Sound quality and the low price more than make up for the lack of a touchscreen and apps. It's a spacious-sounding DAP with lots of power and a dark black background. Finally, the last thing I love about the Surfan's F20 is the tank-like build quality and tactile, clicky buttons and scroll wheel. It gave me that throwback to a simpler time when I wasn't tapping on screens and could use my DAP for what it was meant for. Listening to music. Number 2. Hydise's AP80 Pro X. Now we get into the portable and affordable stuff, and what better way than to introduce the Hydise's AP80. This diminutive DAP packs lots of high-resolution goodness for your music, such as extensive support for audiophile-grade codecs like MQA8X, LDAC, and APTs. It even has DSD support but is limited to 256, which is to be expected given the size. The internals are solid, too, and while they saved a little on the Inganic chipset, it doesn't seem to impact the performance, even when scrubbing through large music libraries on the external microSD slot. The really good thing is that the budget was allocated to give us dual Saber DACs and lots of power from the amp section. From the 3.5mm jack, the sound is nothing to write home about. In fact, it was almost indistinguishable from my Sony Xperia headphone jack, but when I hooked my hard-to-drive impedance beyerdynamic headphones, I couldn't believe how much power it was putting out and thus driving them to their potential. The battery life again took a hit as I got 6 hours balanced from a single charge, but recharge times were fast. Number 3. FiO M11S HiRes MP3 Music Player. The FiO M11S is a beast of a digital audio player, DAP, for its price and gives many of the features of the more expensive models without cutting out the important stuff. It has one of the best battery lives on test, and that's even with the size being manageable by actually being pocketable. It uses the powerful Snapdragon 660 chipset with Android 10 that FiO's engineers have tuned, and it's very smooth and stable. I like that they have given me multiple balanced options, as I can switch between my full-size cans and IMs without using a dongle, and the power it produces is immense. I never felt like the power was lacking. The sound is very transparent, almost to the point of being dry, so I suggest using them with some cans that have a little warmth to them. Overall, I think the best thing I can say about the M11S is that it is a very well-polished product. It does a lot right and very little wrong, which is probably why you don't ever hear criticism of this player from its owners. Number 4. Shanling M6 Ultra. Shanling has been working away on refining the M6 line for years now. It's the company's mid-range MP3 player, and it just keeps getting better and better. The original was so good it was my go-to DAP, and just recently, I replaced my Ibasso DX240 with the Ultra and have been loving the performance in the small and familiar package. Quad DACs and dual amps drive this bad boy's sound portion, while the hardware is driven by the outstanding Snapdragon 665, which is even a step up from the more expensive HD music players on this list. That means it's one of the most stable and smooth user experiences I have had on one of these devices. Sound quality is second to none when paired up with capable headphones. It produces a vibrant, detailed, and true-to-source material sound. Codec support will help as this has 16x MQA and DSD 512 baked in. Battery life is also really good if using a 3.5mm jack. I got 13 hours of playback and 10 when using balanced, which, when you consider the size and power ratio, is very good. Number 5. FiO M11 Plus. For a long time, FiO has been in control of the cheap DAP market, but in recent years, they expanded their line and are considered one of the best music player and amp manufacturers on the planet. The M11 Plus is the company's latest mid-priced offering, and it's probably their best price to performance. The M11 Plus supports various high-resolution audio formats such as DSD, DSF, DFF, PCM, AP, FLAC, WAVE, AIFF, ALAC, WMA, PCM, MP3, OGG, ACC. This music player packs a heavy punch for its size and price and competes with many of AK's entry-level models on sound. Number 6. FIO M17. Although I use the Ibasso DX320 daily as my MP3 player of choice, if I were to switch to another, it would be the FIO M17. For me, the sound quality is so good on both. Everything else comes down to personal preference. I have always been an Ibasso user, so I stick with them. In a practical sense, both are elite and, in my opinion, the two best DAPs you can buy in 2023. What impresses me most about the M17 is how FIO managed to cram so much desktop componentry into such a small package. The ES9038 Pro DAC is found on full-size desktops and hi-fi components, but the house, in collab with THX Amp, also packs a punch. Codec support is all there, including MQA8 and DSD512, which we like to see, as many audiophiles will integrate this player into their full hi-fi system. Now, the issue here is this a DAP? Well, yes, of course, but if I had one, I would see myself using it more as a transportable solution, taking advantage of its power system. While the componentry is good, it's not as portable as the DX320. The battery life is bad, especially when used in balanced setups. I found 6 hours was more realistic in my testing, so you must ensure you have the patience to charge it, as it takes over 4 hours from dead to full. The FIO M17 is an exercise in lunacy, a way to see how far we can push the hobby, and FIO has certainly pushed this one. As for every bit, it's crazy, but it's equally brilliant. Number 7. Ibasso DX320. As I mentioned above, the Ibasso DX320 is my high residential music player of choice these days, and it replaced my already excellent DX300. It strikes a nice balance of features and price, especially when compared to more pricey options from Estelle and Kern that don't necessarily sound much better. This unit sounds ridiculously good and delivers on both the power and transparency fronts, which are important when pairing it with capable hi-fi equipment and headphones. Whatever IM or headphones I throw at it, the DX320 never seems to lack power, and that is very important to me as someone who reviews a wide variety of hard-to-drive gear. Speaking of reviewing and testing, that means I switch headphones a lot. I am less reliant on carrying external adapters because it includes 3 jack connectors, 2.5mm and 4.4mm balanced and standard 3.5mm. I also love the big screen and smoothness of the Android operating system. I have never had it crash or lag on me. The Snapdragon 660 chipset, while not the flagship, is ridiculously overpowered for such a device. Even when sifting through a microSD card filled with 500 GB of music, it's rock solid. RAM is a healthy 6 GB, and internal storage is an admittedly small 128 GB. There has to be one drawback, but of course it's the battery life. I basso through the kitchen sink at this DAP, and understandably, the draw on the battery is immense. While the company claims 10 hours, I got between 7 to 8 in real-world use.